Well, it's February, so naturally there are no new video games to play. Guess it's time to look in the library for something nostalgic. Let's see, we got Animal Crossing, Burnout, Crazy Taxi, 3 Harry Potters, Luigi's Mansion. Oh yeah, I know what we're playing today. What's your favorite video game? We've all been asked this question at some point, and for the longest time, I didn't know how to answer it. Back in grammar school, I would say Sonic before you could even finish the question. It wasn't until high school, however, that I really had to think about what my favorite video game and video game franchise was. One day it was Zelda, the next day Assassin's Creed, and on off days, Black Ops 2. Yeah, I got a lot of laughs for that one. It wasn't until my early college years when I began to realize what I value most in video games. A sense of discovery, the feeling of being lost in another world bigger than life itself, and an atmosphere aided by a gorgeous art style and immersive music. So if you ask me now what my favorite video game of all time is, I would say it's the Metroid Prime Trilogy. Yes, I know it's 3 games in one, but I love them all for different reasons. You can't possibly expect me to choose a favorite. But yeah, as you can tell, I'm a big Metroid fan. But I don't think you understand how big of a Metroid fan I am. For example, here's my reaction to Metroid Prime 4's announcement. Yes! Yes! And here's my reaction to Metroid Prime 4's delay.
I am untethered and my rage knows no bounds!
Anyway, you saw the title. I'm going to be talking about the game that started this trilogy off, Metroid Prime. Metroid Prime was released on November 17, 2002, and was developed by the then newly established Retro Studios, directed by Mark Pacini, and produced by Kensuke Tanabe, who pretty much served as the creative vision for this project. By the time the game came out, there was a whopping 8-year gap between Prime and the last Metroid game, Super Metroid. Having skipped the Nintendo 64 generation, it was clear that Nintendo was having trouble figuring out how to bring Metroid to the 3D space. But then, a brave soul by the name of Shigeru Miyamoto had an idea. Yep, it was his idea to make 3D Metroid a first-person experience. And I'm glad they waited until the GameCube to do it, because could you imagine playing Metroid Prime with this? No way. Even then, Metroid Prime came at a time when developers were still figuring out how to make first-person games work on this instead of this. I think we can all agree that Halo was the one to perfect traditional console shooter controls, but Retro Studios took a different approach with Metroid Prime. In short, they used tank controls, and if you're too young to understand what that means, imagine controlling a tank in Battlefield. It's kinda like that, but not nearly as frustrating, especially with the lock-on feature that made combat and aiming vertically more doable. But if you're just now jumping into the Prime games, then the trilogy on the Wii is currently the best way to play it. Until Nintendo releases it on the Switch. Where is it, guys? The Wii versions of Prime 1 and 2 are more approachable by today's standards, as their controls are more in line with traditional first-person shooters. I'm also using this version for today's video because it converts the game into a 16:9 widescreen format. It makes editing a whole lot easier, kids, believe me. Now then, let's start from the beginning. You play as an intergalactic bounty hunter named Samus Aran, yes, that character from Smash Bros, who receives an unidentified distress signal from a facility located above the planet Talon IV. Samus docks her ship on the research station, and even though nobody's watching, she decides to show off her acrobatic skills. Joke's on you, Samus. We were all watching. What follows is a tiny bit of a tutorial showing you how to aim, shoot, and activate your scan visor, which are the 3 things you'll be doing the most of in this game. Everything is quiet here. Nothing feels right. You'd think this would be a perfect time for some monster to jump out and scare you, but the first thing you see upon entering the facility is a gigantic carcass of God knows what. That's where your scan visor comes in, and wow, this is one hell of a feature in a video game. You're able to scan most objects, which will yield information about them ranging from a few sentences to a few paragraphs. It really makes the world of Metroid Prime come alive, adding in so many details about the environment and backstory of the world of Talon IV. Scanning creatures, plant life, and documents will bring this info into your logbook, and you will get bonuses depending on how much data you put in there. But back to the madness. As you find an injured soul, reach out to help, and oh my god!
I offered you friendship, and you spat in my face.
Turns out, this facility is being run by a group of weasels called space pirates. And yes, that is the official name for their species, so you can imagine they're pretty much assholes. They're the main antagonists throughout the entire franchise, and Samus is always hired by the Galactic Federation to put an end to their shenanigans. But this time, they brought Samus to them.
How the turntables.
After fighting your way through a bunch of these pirates, you wind up facing the Parasite Queen, an experiment gone wrong and the reason for the distress beacon. She goes down in less than a minute. At the cost of killing the queen, the station begins to collapse, and on her way out of the facility, Samus encounters Meta Ridley, half space pirate, half pterodactyl dragon. He led the attack on Samus's homeworld that killed her parents, so you can imagine she's not a fan of him. Then you get to use your grapple beam, and oh my god, this is really fun. I can't wait to use this again. Rather than just fly away home after destroying the base, Samus is out to avenge her gear and chase after Ridley to the surface of Talon IV. And thus, Metroid Prime officially kicks off. Now let me just say, damn, this game looks good. It may not look like much today, but back then, this was a graphical achievement. Nowadays, it could use a few touch-ups like an HD resolution, but other than that, the stylized realism of Metroid Prime has aged much better than most games from the same year. Yep, this little GameCube was a powerful machine, even if it had discs barely larger than an Oreo. And I know I'm playing this on the Wii, but this version doesn't look that much better than on the GameCube, if at all. The only visual difference is the widescreen format. You're still getting the same looking game. The impressive visuals don't stop there, however, as Metroid Prime likes to remind you that you're viewing the adventure through Samus's eyes, and more so through her helmet. Light reflects off the visor, it can get covered in mist and water, and you can even see the reflection of her eyes at certain parts. It's the little things that make this game special, you know? And look at that, you can even see your reflection. Retro Studios thought of everything. This kind of graphical fidelity is somewhat unprecedented in Nintendo games today. Like sure, Breath of the Wild and Super Mario Odyssey look really good, but Metroid Prime pushed the boundaries on how video games could look. And I hope Metroid Prime 4 does a similar thing by pushing the Nintendo Switch's hardware to its absolute limits. Or the Switch Pro's hardware, is that even still happening? Before I talk about the gameplay, I want to talk about the environments, and yes, that means I'm going to gush more about how good this game looks. Not graphically, but atmospherically. Atmosphere is the most important ingredient in a Metroid game, and it is also where Prime 1 succeeds the best at. From the very beginning at the research station, everything is dark and quiet, with the only sound being the steps you make into the facility. And upon realizing the horror of what happened, the music delivers some eerie and dreadful tones. This is until you land on the Talon overworld, where the music transitions into something more vibrant and welcoming, letting you know you're about to go on the adventure of a lifetime through the historic Chozo ruins, the intense Magmore caverns, the tranquil Phendrana drifts, and the deadly Phazon mines. They did play it a little safe with these locations, what with lava and snow areas, but are you really going to look at the intro to Phendrana drifts and tell me this doesn't look beautiful? Honestly, as great as these locations look, they would be nothing without their music. And that's mainly thanks to composer Kenji Yamamoto, who's worked on music and sound for most of the games since Super Metroid. And there's no doubt he's the one that knows what Metroid is supposed to sound like. I could go on and on for hours about how the presentation of this game is just amazing. But a video game is a video game, and a video game has to play well. So how well did Retro Studios morph the 2D gameplay of Metroid into the 3D space? It's pretty good. Not amazing, but it's solid. Did I mention this game's a masterpiece? When you land on the planet, your first objective is to get back your gear, and the game places a linear path in front of you to get them back. Not linear in the go down that hallway sense of the word, more like if you go off the beaten path, you will run into a wall that requires you have an item you definitely don't have. I would show you an example, but I've played this game too many times and I already know where to go, that place being the Chozo ruins, and your first mini-boss, the Hive Mecha. It sucks. You got all these war wasps flying around you, and you have to kill them all in order to damage the hive and get your missiles. This probably worked better on the GameCube, but on the Wii, it's a pain in the ass. Fortunately, the rest of the mini-bosses in this area are easy and will give you back your Morph Ball, Charge Beam, and Morph Ball bombs. Don't ask me how Samus turns into that Morph Ball, I just don't know. Upon scanning Chozo lore entries, you find out that the planet was hit by a meteor that injected a great poison onto the planet, causing the water in the ruins to be toxic. That is until you beat this plant creature called Flagra or whatever, and clear the poison. Whoa, hold on there, you're not done. Your job after clearing the ruins of poison is to look around and enter the areas you previously couldn't access and figure out what's going on this planet. Spoiler alert, it involves space pirates, and they're raising Metroids. What could go wrong? Metroids are previously extinct creatures in this universe whose only source of nourishment are your brains. The best way to get rid of them is a cold blast, until you encounter these later Metroids that are color-coded to whatever beam damages them. Amongst the many gadgets and gizmos you'll collect, you'll also acquire 3 other beams: a wave beam, an ice beam, and a plasma beam. They're good for opening doors, sure, but they're also good for stunning enemies, freezing enemies, and Thanos snapping enemies. When you acquire the plasma beam, you're gonna be hard-pressed to want to use any other beam, it's just so powerful. But why are we getting all these gadgets? Why do I need 10 energy tanks? Why do I need a Phazon suit? I don't even know what Phazon is! Well, let me explain. Remember that meteor I mentioned earlier that hit the planet? It's in the Talon overworld, and you have to go inside of it. And the only way to get inside is to collect these keys called Chozo artifacts. And this is probably, no, definitely the most frustrating part of this game. Here, you have to scan the locks in order to get a fairly obvious hint as to where the keys are. But the kicker is that you can't scan all of the locks until you get a certain number of artifacts, making the search that much more difficult. If you're a skilled Metroid Prime player, unlike me, then you can easily find these artifacts while searching for all the gadgets. I don't know how many times I've played this game, but I somehow always forget where these f***ing things are, which caused me a lot of headache due to the backtracking. This is also a problem when you're not looking for the artifacts, as there are just not enough shortcuts to make the travel between areas more seamless. It also doesn't help that enemies respawn, making fighting them feel more tedious. But alas, this is Metroid. If there were no respawning enemies, this game would be rather boring, and killing these creatures help restock you on health and item pickups. Wait, enemies? Oh, there are bosses in this game, I forgot! I was actually quite surprised when I replayed this to find that there aren't that many main bosses in this game. There are quite a few mini-bosses, but only 7 bosses with health bars. That may sound like a lot, but wait until we get to Prime 2. The main bosses to highlight here are the likes of Thardus, who you may recognize from his breakout role in Galaxy Quest, the Omega Pirate, Meta-Ridley, and the Metroid Prime, which I won't spoil just yet. Thardus was unique in that you had to find a certain rock on his body with the thermal visor in order to take him down. The Omega Pirate was interesting because you had to use your X-ray visor when he turned invisible in order to find him. And Meta Ridley was great because he's Ridley, come on guys. Though it was irritating trying to aim for him, I'll admit that. Still, when he falls hard. There is no way he survived that. Nope, we're not going to see him again. I guarantee it. You only fight Ridley after you collect all the Chozo artifacts, which means when you're done battling him, you get to go inside the impact crater and see what all the fuss is about. So if you don't want to know what happens, skip to this part right here. But if you don't care about a 17-year-old game being spoiled for you, stick around. It's gonna get nuts. It's Phazon, but orange! In case you didn't know, Phazon is the main reason all this went down on Talon IV, and it's what the meteor brought back to the planet, which is the reason why the space pirates are there in the first place, to use it for their own benefit. What are they, Americans? You get the Phazon suit after defeating the Omega Pirate, but it's not good enough to defend yourself against Orange Phazon. After going through a few corridors filled with Metroids, you meet the final boss, the Metroid Prime. Oh, I get it now! This boss has 2 phases, the first being encased in a spider-like exoskeleton. The Metroid Prime will change color depending on what weapons it uses against you, forcing you to change weapons depending on that color. It's a good thing you have unlimited ammo in this game. It would be a shame if they got rid of it in a sequel, am I right? Occasionally, the boss will get mad and charge you, to which you'll have to use your Morph Ball to get out of its way. You rinse and repeat this until the second and final phase, where the Metroid Prime's true form is revealed to be that water creature from the abyss, It is impossible to damage the Metroid Prime in this form, which makes me wonder why it needed armor to begin with. The only way to damage it is to stand in a pool of Phazon it leaves behind to enter Hyper Mode and unleash some massive damage. This phase is much easier than the first one, as the only thing you really have to do is kill some Metroids, dodge the Prime's attacks, and switch your visors to see it when it turns invisible. Do all this, and you'll defeat the Metroid Prime.
Metroid Prime? More like Metroid... Lime.
Before it implodes, the Metroid Prime latches onto Samus's Phazon suit and rips it right off her, revealing her gravity suit. How do suits even work in this game anyway? Shouldn't she be in like her Zero suit? Or naked? The defeat of the Metroid Prime also means the destruction of the meteor. If you acquire at least 75% of the items, you'll get the ending where Samus takes off her helmet and thinks about the long nap she's going to take when she gets home. If you get 100%, which I didn't this time, then you get a tease at what's to come in Metroid Prime 2.
Playing through this game with a critical eye was kind of interesting, because I used to hold Metroid Prime in the highest regards, as the best game in the trilogy and even the best one in the series. But it's apparent to me now that there are quite a few issues in this game. Hey, I said it was a masterpiece, not perfect.
The irritating parts of this game that come to mind are the quest for the Chozo artifacts that are only hindered more by the heinous backtracking, and there are more unmemorable bosses than there are memorable ones. These issues keep the game from reaching perfection, but to be fair, what do you expect from a game that had 8 months of crunch time? Wait, what? Yeah, Retro Studios was overworked hard during the development of this game, and at certain points, that crunch kind of shows in the flaws I mentioned earlier. But what Metroid Prime does right is what makes it one of my favorite games of all time. The atmosphere, the exploration, the rich lore, all of these are features I value not just in Metroid, but video games as a whole. Metroid Prime has helped to define my video game tastes in such a way that I can forgive it for the flaws it has and just appreciate everything it does right. I'm sure if this game came out now, it wouldn't have garnered a 97 on Metacritic, but 2002 could not have been a better time for it to release. The influence of Metroid Prime can still be felt today in other modern Metroidvanias, like the Batman Arkham series and the new Tomb Raider games. Oh yeah, Metroidvania is the actual name of a genre, in case you want to know how impactful Metroid is. And admittedly, Metroidvanias are more popular with 2D games, but Metroid Prime is one of, if not the, pioneer of bringing that genre into a 3D space.
You know, after playing this game for the millionth time, I'm really looking forward to seeing how Metroid Prime 2 and 3 improve upon this game. It's going to be really interesting. Oh, that's Sparky. I wonder if he's hungry. Come here, Sparky. Oh, he's definitely hungry. Come on, buddy. Let's go feed you. Come on, come on, come on. He's all yours. Eat up, buddy.
Hey, thanks so much for watching this video here on FerrisWheelPro. If you liked it, be sure to hit that thumbs up and subscribe if you're new to be notified when I upload another one. Special thanks goes to my Patreon supporters Justice to Free, Stephanie Ferris, and Smash JT. Again, thank you so much, and I'll see you on the next ride.